Hello, I'm Generation 3DX, a DAZ studio artist. Hopefully by now you've watched all my foundation series on creating beautiful art in DAZ. In this special video I'm going to be covering the whole subject of eyes, the windows onto the souls of your characters. When I say the eyes have it, of course this is a pun on parliamentary voting results, but in truth the eyes really do have it when it comes to your DAZ artistry because they're the most important single feature on your character. It's usually the first thing the viewer will be looking at when they see your character, as, like in real life, we look at the eyes when we are greeting someone or talking to them. In your art, the eyes tell you either directly what the character is looking at and has their attention on in the outside world, for instance you, through the camera, another character, or an object, or more abstractly, something they may be looking at in their inner world in terms of reflection. In this video, I'll be looking in detail into the world of eyes in DAZ, specifically choosing the best eyes for your character from the various characters you've purchased on the marketplace. Shaping. When customizing your characters, there are quite rightly dozens of shaping dials to fine-tune their shape to create your character's unique look. Posing. The eyes along with the mouth provide the key elements of expression of mood of your character, so how to pose the upper and lower lids along with the squinting or relaxing of muscles around the eyes is key. Pointing. Choosing where the eyes will be looking at is critical to setting the mood and realism of your character and scene. Color. Most obviously with the iris, how to customize stock character iris colors, how ethnicity affects color choice, and also the overlooked color of the sclera, the white of the eye, and how getting this shade correct is key to realism. Cornea Reflectivity. The shiny surface of the eye and how to get the right amount of light reflection on that surface to enhance realism. Makeup. How eyeliner and eyeshadow will enhance the natural beauty of your character's eyes through color and contrast. And last, eye accessories such as lashes and brows. I'm going to quickly make a comment about the current state of my channel. I just noticed this morning when I was just checking on one of my videos, ads came up and I was quite horrified to see this. I'm not actually making any money on these videos. I'm less than 1,000 subscribers, which means YouTube greedily actually put ads on my channel and I don't get anything for them. So if you're seeing ads, I apologize for that. It's not me, it's YouTube that's doing it. And when I get to 1,000 subs, which you can help me with by spreading the word for the channel, then I'm going to make sure all ads are turned off, because the amount of money you make unless you're 100,000 subscribers is so negligible, it's just not worth it. And I like to have my viewers have a full uninterrupted experience of my DAZ tutorials. So anyway, that's it on ads. Okay, so let's get stuck in. And with us today is the lovely Kira, the Irish redhead with the brown eyes. She's going to be taking us through the first part of this tutorial where we'll look at the choice of eyes that you're going to be picking from the marketplace. Now, nobody in their right mind creates eyes from scratch. Okay, so you're going to be starting with some kind of base from a character that you've downloaded, that you bought on the marketplace and downloaded and so forth. So let's have a look at Kira's eyes and let's see what choice I had with hers. I think I know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's Juniper, but I'm going to just verify that. So we select Kira and we go to the Surfaces tab, go to Editor, and we go to Surfaces. And the first thing I'll say about eyes is that they have 4 or 5 different surfaces. So we've got the cornea, eye moisture, eye socket, irises, pupils, and sclera. So that's actually a whopping 6 surfaces. That's almost half the entire surfaces of the body are assigned to eyes. They're that important and they're that complex. Okay, so if we look at the iris, because the iris is usually the one that you're going to be most interested in. If we go here and we see, we click on the base color, or we don't click on it, we just hover over the bitmap. Alright, so we're just going to zoom in here on Kira's lovely eyes and take a look at what we've got. So if we hover over, we see the file, and we click on that file, and it's going to take us to the directory, and we can see this is Markup Scabs Juniper. Okay, we scroll down, we can see that the character artist has created a number of different eyes. In this case, the eyes, and this is rarer, you don't see this as much, the eyes don't have the eye bitmap doesn't have an intrinsic color. Okay, so the way that you color them is using a combination of the gray bitmap and an actual color. So here, this is the color I personally customized for Kira, okay, which is this kind of honey color, honey brown color. Okay, so those are the eyes that she has. Okay, if I was to kind of make that none, for instance, then you know, obviously that's horrendous. You know, it looks like she's some kind of alien from V or something, you know, or a Cylon or something like that. So it is important to have that the iris bitmap. Okay. Another aspect of the character, if I was to let's say pick different eyes. So we open up characters, we go to content library, people, characters, and let's say we go to Victoria 8.1, for instance. Victoria 8.1 materials eye array. Okay. Now if we select that, it'll replace the entire collection of surfaces. Irises, pupils, sclera, everything will get changed over. Okay, so she'll get completely different eyes if I do this to her. So that's with the character selected. You click on the asset there. Okay. So now if we look, we can see on the irises, for instance, this is now Victoria. Okay. We could click on sclera. Sclera is also Victoria, and pupils, not that pupils is particularly important because it's usually just a black dot unless you want to create glowing eyes. That's also Victoria as well. Okay, and cornea I don't think the cornea actually does anything on this one. Okay, and obviously you can change the presets there, so that's closer to what she was before with her brown eyes. Okay. But if I was to go back to these ones, they're rather pale, to be honest. Go back to the irises. You just hover over it. They're I know I don't like these eyes. I think they look a little bit pale. But in theory, I could apply a honey color to that to try to make them more like they were before. But why would I want to do that when I've already got? Oh, that's translucency color, isn't it? Beg your pardon. That's base color. You know, that's too dark now, isn't it? Anyway, so this is not really what I would be wanting to do at all, but it's just to give you an idea that once you select the eyes that you want, you can customize them. Okay, so that you can see that you can change them around here. And we can see that the sclera is a different type, and I think personally it's probably more realistic than the one I had originally. But to be honest with you, I'm kind of satisfied really with the eyes otherwise. I'm just going to undo, go back to how they were. Okay, so let's show some other eyes that you might have with another vendor. So Jaden Subby's Flynn. So again, go into the materials, and here's one here which is similar to her honey color. So we click on this one. Now you see the problem with this, the problem with these eyes, the sclera is just way too bright. Okay, so that is way too white. And I had this for some time with Sansa, my other character Sansa, because she had Flynn's eyes, and I ended up switching over to Victoria because the sclera was just too bright. Okay, now we can change that sclera just to demonstrate that. So we switch over to the sclera and we just tone down that base color, make it more of a grey color. So that's suddenly improved it a lot, hasn't it? Because if you go back to what it was, it's just unrealistic. It's too bright. It's like a cartoon. Just reapply that. It's much better, isn't it? Just tone it down a little bit more and see if it probably find the happy medium here. They look a bit bloodshot there. It's the only thing on these ones. Yeah, they're quite bloodshot. So you might want to try to put a blue tint in on there to offset the red. What's the opposite of red? The opposite of red is more of a green. So we just try to put a bit of a green tinge on that. That might offset the redness. But then now the problem is you've got green. There's more of a green in the middle. So I don't know if there's really much you could do about these particular eyes, these scleras. I mean, the irises look good. The irises look fine. But the problem with this particular, the Jade and Sabi eyes, was the sclera. Alright, now Merida. I know Merida's got some nice eyes. Let's have a look at Merida's. That colour there, maybe. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. They're kind of small. The iris is coming out as a smaller size. That's interesting. Now, you could actually, if you really like those particular eyes, you can always adjust the iris size and shaping. So here you go, iris size. I'm going to cover a bit more about this when we talk about shaping. But you can increase the iris size. So that would fix that, because they were too small. I thought they were too small. So that's Merida's, and yeah, they're not bad. Again, the sclera, I would say, was probably a little bit too bright. You just turn that. It's already set to 0.89 on between 0 and 1 on the whiteness scale. So just tone that down. You see, that does improve it, doesn't it? It looks more real. Okay, so those are four different vendors if we include the original Marcus Gabb's Junifer. So Victoria, Jade and Sabi's Flynn, and also Merida. So that just gives you an idea that you can chop and change the eyes like some kind of like super efficient plastic surgeon, or like, what's his name, the guy in Blade Runner, the guy in the freezing lab who used to change out eyes, didn't he? What's his name? Sure, leave the name in the comments if you remember the guy in Blade Runner. the old Chinese fella in the freezing store. Change out the eyes that way. Okay, no, don't be like him. No, that would be probably illegal in most states and most jurisdictions. Okay, so that's choosing your eyes from characters. Okay, now let's get into the big subject of shaping. Okay, so the shape of the eyes is complex, very complex, and is absolutely critical to your character in terms of how they're going to look and how it shapes the character itself. I would say that their face shape is probably the biggest one, and then eyes very, very, very shortly after face shape is the biggest factor in how your character looks, how they do. Okay, and the nose to a lesser extent, and the mouth. So eyes are really, really important for that. Right. So how do you shape eyes? Well, you'll start with in this case, Kira is based on Marcus Gabb's Junifer, and here's a picture of Junifer, the original Junifer, who is actually Joni, more or less. Okay, so Kira underwent quite a lot of plastic surgery to become the unique character that she is, but she was templated completely from Junifer. Okay, so I did quite a bit of work on her. And she is how she is now. So how did we get there? Well, if we compare her eyes to Joni's, we can see firstly, well, obviously these are a different color, and we just covered that. Okay, but in terms of their shape, you will see firstly that they're at angle, so they're angling down, so they're angling from the center of the face. The angle goes downwards. Okay. And that seems to be a particular thing that I like to see. I like downward angling eyes. An example of a famous actress who has such eyes would be Anne Hathaway. She has downward sloping eyes. Okay, and the way that you can do that one is in shaping. I think it's angle. So we got her eyes angled. I'm actually just going to turn off eye ray for this so we can see this in real time. Yeah, there you go. Alright, so that's your eye angle. Okay, now this would obviously be Vulcan style, alien, and that would be something that would just look really wrong. Okay, as if she was melting or something like that. So you have to find that happy medium. Originally, Joni's eyes were more upward sloping. Okay, so they were more like that. Another change is in the bottom lid. So you go in shaping, you go to the eyes, and by the way, if you want to do any of this shaping stuff, you don't get this base. You don't get this with the base version of DAZ. You need to get hold of some shaping add-ons, and the two that I use are Genesis 8 Female Body Morphs and Genesis 8 female head morphs. So they're usually available at discounted on the DAS store. This is if you're using Genesis 8. If you're using Genesis 9, there'll be some equivalent of those where you can do all the shaping to your heart's content. But I've been using the same ones now for over 2 years and haven't felt the need to add to them. What they do is they provide you in the shaping areas. You've got your eyes. You have just an absolute ton. Yeah, an absolute ton of dials that you can make changes to. Okay, so in the case of Kira's differences with Joni, we have kind of a shape there which Joni doesn't really have. It's more pronounced shape. I can't remember which one that was, and I've not necessarily got the patience to try to find it. But you have overall, you got a combination of, you got some combination dials here where you can do an overall shape change. Okay, that's just, looks like it's just increasing the height of the eye there. So you have these combo ones, which will just be shape and then a number for the entire eye. So that one's pulling down there, yeah, doing some weird stuff. Or you have very specific ones. I don't know, like this one here, upper folds A. I don't even know what that does. I don't even think it's going to show its man. Some of these are so subtle you can barely see them. I can't even see what that one's doing. And yeah, you can spend hours. You can spend hours on these. But there are some ones I find more important than others. Iris sides, I touched on that earlier. If you wanted to create more of a fantasy look, you know, like Avatar, that's how you do your Avatar. And that one is just weird. It's just weird beyond, but it's so horrible. It's going to be nightmares. Put them back. And there's the size overall as well, and that's an important one. So she's actually got slightly oversized eyes. I wonder why. I don't quite know, but yeah, it starts to get disturbing when they get too big. And vice versa. So there's actually a pretty narrow range there of what you consider realistic or acceptable. The width determines, that's another important one. That is a really critical one that you're going to want to experiment with, and that determines how far apart the eyes are. Okay. So again, more of an alien look, more of a possible birth defect look. I was happy with the slight reduction that I had in her eye widths. There is a lot, I don't want to go into all of these, there's so many, but to pick out the ones that I think are particularly important. Another one I'm going to have to just rotate around here to see that is eyes depth, and that determines how far into or out of the sockets they are. Okay, so that would give you more of a bulging look, and that's more of a recessed look. Okay, so that shaping is super important to give your character that unique look, and you want to spend quite a lot of time. It's usually several hours. I can spend just on eye shape, okay, to get those shaping. To get the shaping unique. Now let's talk about posing. It's a big subject. It's gonna cover it in two parts. Okay. Well, no, yeah, we are going to cover it in two parts because we're going to talk about posing, and then part of posing is pointing. Okay. Now, when we say posing, the first part, we're kind of talking about how the lids move. Okay. Because you've got two movement components to the eyes. You've got the lids, and then you've got the eyeballs themselves. Eyeballs is covered in pointing, and posing in terms of expression is covered in the posing aspect, the shaping of the eyelids. Now the two kind of cross over, and we'll cover that at the end, where the lids are influenced by the positions of the eyeballs sometimes. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right. So we go to the posing tab. Pose controls, head, eyes, and here we've got our posing. She's a Genesis 8, so she's got a relatively simple set of eye controls. If you had Genesis 9 or Genesis 8.1, you're going to see a different set of dials here. Now I quite like Genesis 8 because it's quite simple. It's not overly complicated, and it tells me exactly what it is. Okay, so if we look here, we'll start at the top. Eyelids lower, up or down, and that it literally says what it does. So if we move that dial up, you can see she's kind of feeling, she's more squinting more. If we drop them down, then you know, well, they're sunken and they're unrealistic. But there's a certain range that is going to work, okay, for that look that you want. So the lower lids tend to determine how much of a squint or how much tension there is in the eyes. Okay, so if you want that kind of critical or angry looking, or sometimes even laughter or smiling will also create that tension in the lower eyelid, and it's going to lift that. It's going to lift it to give you that expression. Okay, the upper lid, up or down, determines how sleepy the character is, or how sultry they might look, or how wide awake or alert or surprised they are. So obviously that's creating more of a surprised look. Okay, this one, normal, that would be something normal, and then you drop it down and then she's starting to get sleepy, right? But there's something between normal and sleepy which is more of a seductive look, and you get that in combination with the lower lids. Okay, maybe not like that much. Probably want to switch to eye rate to really get that look. So there, she's not quite sleepy. In fact, probably just increase that a little bit, and sometimes the adjustment here is very, very, very fine. It can be millimeters difference between that expression that you're going to get there. So that's more of a she's not sleepy there now, but she looks like she might be. Well, she drop her lower lids a little bit. So there's more of a kind of relaxed look. If we were to increase those just even slightly, you see that dial hardly changed, and now the expression's completely different. So that you're gonna find a lot of sensitivity in the middle part of this, and that range will vary depending upon where the eyes are pointing. If her eyes are pointing slightly upwards, which biases these dials more toward, I think, the bottom. It's one way or the other, but you'll find that in Genesis 8 you'll be playing within a certain range. These two dials will be close to each other, or there's 6 because you can change left and right, but I rarely do that. I just do both together. If her eyes were going to be pointing in a different direction, these would be in a different range, and we'll cover that in a minute, because I don't want to get into pointing too much, because then we get into this other subject of how the lids are affected by the where the eyes are pointing. Okay, we have some more features here. Eyes closed, it's pretty obvious. That allows you to change both the lids both at the same time. Okay, and you can actually completely close the eyes. For some reason it goes over 100% on the control dial there, but that's definitely resulted in her eyes being closed. And that's a good way to check your eyeliners, to the eyeshadow, if your eyeshadow effects are working. But we'll cover that when we get to makeup. Okay, so that's your closed eyes. Eyes crossed is, you think, well, why would you ever want to cross the eyes unless you want them to look like they're, you know, there's some kind of mental issues going on with them, because you know, Dumb and Dumber, right? But actually, if you don't have pointing add-ons to actually point the eyes correctly, you're going to sometimes have to do eyes crossed, because if you imagine she's looking at something in the far distance, then 0 means that the eyes are both the eyes are parallel. But if she had her finger in front of her face and she was looking at a finger, you're going to get a slight crossed effect, and you need to bear that in mind. Okay, and that will determine the realism of that person looking at a closer object. Okay, so there's a slight crossing there. She doesn't look wrong, but she looks like she might be looking at something closer than, say, this 0, where she's looking distantly. Okay, so that determines if they're not looking specifically at the camera, but it's also this is automatically taken care of when you have pointing software, which we're going to cover in a minute. But if you don't have pointing software, you need to just be aware that you need to do some manual work sometimes on eyes crossed. Okay. And again, on the manual side, eyes relaxed. Let's talk about, before we could talk about that, eyes relaxed. What does eyes relaxed do? I think it just causes them to droop a little bit. I don't really use relaxed very much, to be honest. But one thing you do want to be, one thing that does come into it quite a bit is squint. Okay, so if I do an eye, which is this way. So eye squint is a composite. So it's doing quite a number of things here. It's doing brow. You see the brows are moving. It's the cheeks. The cheeks are also squinting, and the lids are also squinting as well. Okay. So squint is if you want to combine that with a smile, for instance. So if I give her a smile, if the eyes don't squint in combination with that smile, it looks a bit weird. So just reset that squint. It's like, oh, hello, I'm happy, but my eyes aren't really showing it. In fact, this is probably not really, I find Genesis 8 struggles, to be honest, with smiles. I find smiling is quite a lot easier with Genesis 8.1. But when somebody smiles, they don't just smile with their mouth, they smile their eyes as well. And the usual way that you impact that is using the squint aspect of the eyes. Alright, so that covers the eyelids. Well, we're just all talking about eyelids there. Just a tiny piece of the anatomy has an enormous effect upon the mood and the expression of the character that you're creating. Okay. All right. So let's talk about pointing now. And pointing, I've covered this subject in my camera tutorial. So if you've already seen that, you can just skip ahead on this section. Okay. But if you haven't, if you want to just review that, we'll do that now in the context of this whole subject of eyes. Right. Okay. Where the eyes are pointing is absolutely fundamental to your scene. It's going to determine the actual content of the scene. What's the character looking at? What's the character thinking? And so on. 80 to 90% of the time, depending on my mood as an artist, I'll have the character just looking at the camera, because my main thing is about portraits. Okay, some of you might have different emphasis in your art, but for me, it's usually a very heavy percentage of my art is portraits. So how do we get the character to look at the camera? There are a number of different ways you can do this, starting with the hardest way, which is manually actually shifting them. Okay, so in this case, we can use eyes side to side. So we'll get her to move her eyes so we think they're roughly looking at the camera, and side to side and up and down. Okay, and then we need to do a bit of a cross there, I think, possibly very, very slight crossing of the eyes. Let's have a look on iRay to see if we've got that roughly correct. I said this is hard work, and there's something really quite wrong there. What's going on? I think it's because our eyelids have not adjusted. Just drop those down and drop the top lids down as well. She looks kind of pissed off there. Yeah, that's better. Actually, she's looking at the camera now, isn't she? Roughly. But there's quite a lot of work to do that. Now imagine you think, I want to change the camera position again. You've got to do it all over again. It's going to drive you crazy. Now I'm not going to go through the whole thing again. But you can see that you're going to be spending so much time, and if you get it even slightly wrong, it just doesn't look right. Okay. There's another trick you can use. Let's just move let's move the camera to that new position. Okay, so what we'll do is we will go, and in the scene itself, you go to your there we go, right. So it is in this case it's just translate tool, but so now it comes up in the hierarchy. So we've got Kira here, Kira, and then the first one gives it in the hierarchy, and you can very quickly get the left eye by selecting that using Control and then click. So we now have both eyes. So we go to parameters and all, I think there's one called constraints, but then you don't, yeah, it's actually covered in constraints, but you don't, you can go straight to constraints if you want, but I just go to all and it's usually there. Point at. Okay, we've got camera 2, point at, and we select camera 2, and something's gone horribly wrong because there's a bug, and this is a bug that's known. So what you have to do is you have to jiggle the view, and then it corrects. Okay, so just move the camera a bit. So now because they're pointing at the camera, they follow the camera. So as long as you're moving the camera or you do something to the camera, it will cause the point at. If you don't move the camera or jiggle it in any way, you get that weird effect that you just saw. Okay, so this is a problem if you're using something like a render queue. Okay, because if you're using render queue, it doesn't know about this, and it's not able to actually do the it's not able to do that jiggle. So your eyes will be all over the place. So this is it's if you're not using render queue, it's fine. It works to a certain degree. Okay, so let's have a look at it again on iRay. Is it really working? It is working, isn't it? Roughly, yes. So there is. We can say that she's looking at the camera. I personally think the eyes are a little bit too crossed there, which makes me think there's a slight kind of error in the algorithm. And I've noticed this, and you can see this on some of my earlier renders of my characters done before I purchased an add-on, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, where sometimes the eyes would just look a bit too crossed over. Okay, but one thing it's very convenient for is you can be moving the camera around all the time, and the eyes will follow your camera everywhere. Okay, when you have that point at set. Yeah, there's definitely too much of a crossing going on there. So it's like it might be pointing to the very front of the camera. I don't know. I'm going to turn it off now. Still got my eyes selected. I'll set it back to none because I want to show you the last one, and this is the one I recommend. And no, I'm not making a commission, but it's basically an add-on called Look at Me 2. Okay, and that's by Riversoft Art. So the Look at Me, if I go to Look at Me, utilities, we go to scripts. I should do look. Right, so we've got a number of different scripts here. So the first one was what we're talking about, the need to have them look at the camera. Okay, so we can click on this, look at camera 2, and we can set the eyes. We can also set head, chest, abdomen, but won't get into those. We assume that we're fixing the head at 0 and the abdomen. So we just and by default it allows you to just set the eyes. Okay, you can turn toggle eye movement on off. Okay, and you can preview that, or that's equivalent to just doing preview. So now, so we can see that now there's something wrong with the lids there, but that's because I was messing around with the lids earlier because I was doing manual stuff, but normally it wouldn't do that. Let's just reset her lids. Alright, I found out the problem was her head was actually tilting upwards. So she was looking down her nose at us. Okay, I fixed it now that the head is actually vertically aligned. Okay, so that's good. Right, now I've messed up the camera now. Let's just sort that out. Okay, right. I had to just jig around a few things there. So now we have her looking at the camera. Just bring that camera down a little bit. There we go. So now if we do our look at camera, preview, there we go. That's a nice, lovely, natural look, isn't it? And we can see she's looking directly at the camera. That, I don't think there's any aberration there. There's no weirdness. There's no crossing of the eyes. That it looks unusual. Okay. It's this to me is why look at camera. Look at me is worth its weight in gold, because it gives you some subtle correctness that just works. Okay. We compare that to when we did the point at, and I'll do a render of both, and then we can just look at them side by side. You can see that if you do the manual point at, there's just something not quite right. If you do using this look at me it just looks beautiful. It looks perfect. Okay, so look out for it when it's on the sale, and just grab it, because it's honestly it's the most used add-on I have in DAZ. I use it so many times, and it's indispensable, and it makes a massive difference. Okay, right. Now the other thing it does a very, and the reason the reason I think it works so effectively is because it is accurate. It does a very accurate pointing at the camera, but it auto adjusts these values here. Okay, so let's move the camera. See, we can remember those are set to 14. Okay, and it's also got the up and down and side to sides. They're all fixed and adjusted for you. Okay, but the lids are important. So what we'll do is we'll just drop the camera down. So we've got her orbiting over her. So remember, those are 14. We'll do look at camera again. Now obviously this is quite extreme because she's looking all the way down. You see that it's automatically adjusted those values. So now they're minus 50. They're quite extreme, to be honest, and that's bottom down. That's probably as far below that she can actually look without having to move her head. Okay, just move the camera in the opposite direction, so that it should now have to do a big look up. Oh, was that what it was before? Let's move it up again. She really has to look up now. There you go. See, it's adjusting it upwards. She still looks great, doesn't she? She looks beautiful, and she looks realistic because it's adjusting these. It's adjusting these so it's taken all that workload off you of having to mess about with all this. So you get this beautiful natural look. I don't know how on earth the developer did that, but it's a genius. It's a genius piece of work that they've done, because I rarely have to change these because I find that the look at me just takes care of it all. So to manually adjust those, if I manually messed about with those, I'm not going to get that same look. It's just broken it. It's broken that magic now. It's broken the magic. I'm going to cry. Well, I guess, if you wanted a weird look like that, you could get it. But if we just do that again, preview and accept it, it's back to how it was. It's perfect. Okay, so I know I'm banging on about this a lot, but there's not a single piece of add-on. There's not a single add-on that is more critical to my workflow than that. Okay, now you have other aspects of, let's say you have two characters in the scene. In fact, let's just load that up. Okay, so we've got here Joni and Natalie, two figures in this scene. How do we get them interacting with each other with their eyes? Well, we've got a number of different tools here that we can use. Firstly, I'll show you the hard way on how to do it, and that's to do it manually. Okay, so let's say we want to get Natalie to look at Joni. So what we need to do is get a perspective view. So we move the perspective view to where we think we want Natalie to look, and that's in front of Joni's face. So we just try to get as close as we can to that position there, and then we have to manually move Natalie's head. Use the neck group on power pose to turn her head and neck naturally together. So we've got head roughly in the correct position, and then we go to posing to move the eyes. So we got side to side and up and down. I think she's already there actually on up and down. Notice on the 8.1, she's a Genesis 8.1, the Natalie is, the eyelids accommodate the eyeball, so it naturally moves those. It's more sophisticated than an 8, and I think 9 will almost certainly do that. I don't use 9, Genesis 9, but I'm sure it will do that. And because we have a slight, because she's quite close, we need to actually do a slight crossing of the eyes. Genesis 8 doesn't seem to have an eyes crossed dial, so we have to do a side-to-side adjustment manually to move the eyeballs in to the center slightly. There you go. Alright, so we look at that on the eye ray. Yeah, it looks pretty good. She's looking like she's staring a little bit there, so just droop her eyes a bit. Right, okay, and then we just go back to the original camera. Does that look real? Yeah, it looks like she is looking at her, so that wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad, was it? Just move this camera around a little bit just to see if you can actually see. Yeah, but there's something not quite right about it. So I have not got millimeter precision correctly there somehow. Anyway, so that is always kind of the downsides of doing it the manual way. It's a lot of work, and you can be just slightly off. So she looks a little bit wooden there now that it's rendering in more detail. So something's just not right. Something's not right. If we go back to that perspective view. See, it looks right. Yeah, it's because she's probably looking at the wrong point in space, so it's coming through as her attention is not on the correct point. So the only way I could really do that probably is I'd have to move it into her head, but then I can't see it now. I can't see the bloody eyes now. What we can do instead is we'll select Natalie's left and right eye. Got them selected here in the hierarchy. Control click to select both, and then we can do point out, and then we select. This is such a pain. This is going to have to go all the way into the Joni's hierarchy. It's a long way down to make her look at her left eye. Okay, again. It looks like her eyes are crossed too much here, so again it's an imperfect result. So there's a lot of work going into this, and it's just driving me crazy, and this is because I'm not doing it the easy way, which is to use the scripting suite we've got here, which is look at. Okay, so I'm going to clear that point at. I'm going to clear the point at on her eyes. So let's do it the easy way now. Okay, so we select Natalie. And then we're going to select Joni as the second selection, and then we click look into my eyes, and then we preview that. Actually turn the head twist off. Perfect. That's going to work. So how does that look? Is she really looking at her? I think she is. And it was just like 1, 2, 3 clicks. That was it. Yeah, you see how easy that was compared to, and a good result compared to all the pain in the arse stuff we had to do the other way, right? So there's and then you can have them actually go, and there's another way you could do it, which is look at that, where you can just select Joni's head and then say Natalie select, and then Joni's head, and then do the look at that. But look into my eyes is a refinement even upon that one. So that's a cheating way of doing that one even better. Or you can have them look at each other. So we can do that. We can select both. And here you've got figure 1 and 2. And now they're looking at each other. What a loving moment. Look at this. And all we had to do is 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks. Yeah, look at that. That worked. Although she's having to crane her neck quite a lot there, because they're kind of parallel to each other. If you had their bodies facing each other, and actually that's one thing you can actually do even better. It's going a bit off the subject of eyes, but you could have if you go look at each other again, and then you can enable the chest and the abdomen, so they can actually spin to each other, the whole bodies. Oh, hello. she's getting in there. She's going in for a kiss, I think. So then now their entire body. Oh, blimey, yeah, that's getting a bit not suitable for work potentially. But you get the idea that you can turn on. You can have their whole bodies, chest and abdomen, rotating to do that lookout thing here. So let's get this back to a family friendly. So we don't get demonetized. Well, I can't be demonetized. I'm not even 1,000 subs. I can't even monetize it, and I won't anyway, as I told you. Right. So that is how you can use. That's eyes with 2 figures. Okay. And I say, do yourself a favor and get look at me, because it just takes care of all the pain in the ass stuff about trying to get 2 figures to look at each other. Okay, right, enough on that. Alright, so I'm just going to return briefly. Well, it's not going to be brief, I know, because I go on about this a lot, because it's one of my favorite subjects. The subject of color and ethnicity. Okay, so we've got the lovely Kayla here, the blonde bombshell, and she has blue eyes, which is obviously pretty common for blondes, natural blondes. And so that is, it's talking about the combination of skin, eyes, and hair. Okay, and where this person would originate from, if they're European, of European extraction. Okay, so that could be anybody who's from Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, etc. Right? So if you're having a backstory to your character, you want that backstory to kind of reflect in a realistic fleshing out, if you like, of that person in their ethnicity. So the way you can do this, you can just go onto Google or Google image search and just look at, type in the name of a country and then girl or man or something like that, and then you can see pictures of what people would look like from that country. Okay. Now, Kayla, she's from California. Now, obviously, she's not an original Californian, because she would be American Indian if she was. But her family would have been from European settlers, probably Scandinavian, judging by her blonde hair, or Polish or Lithuanian or something like that. So the eye color there is reflective of her ethnicity. If we were to give her say a different eye color, like say brown, it looks a little bit odd, doesn't it? Now you could say, well, yeah, I suppose it's possible. I mean, I've never met a brown-eyed, a natural blonde in my life. I just don't think that. I've never seen that combo. If anybody else has, leave a comment and put the date and time and the place when you saw that natural blonde with brown eyes. So that's kind of like a trigger there for the viewer, saying what's going on, something's not right. Okay, so that's a fairly simple case there. You can say, well, what's probably happened is that she was actually a brunette, but she's dyed her hair blonde. And actually, if you want to kind of create that story, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with bleaching your hair. I mean, I'm not some kind of white supremacist that demands that everybody look exactly how nature gifted them. You're free to do what you want with your body. So anyway, yeah. So just revert her back to her actual eyes that I've given her, and she's consistently having. And that's another point, by the way, is once you feel settled with your characters, you kind of want to lock in. I think you want to lock in those features, unless you feel there's an improvement that really needs to be made. Because if you're swapping around the eyes and skin and hair, well, hair is definitely, you can do what you want with hair, because hair is very easy to change. But you want to basically say that's locked in now, and that's that character, and that's determined for that character to be going forward, because they're a real person, right? Okay, let's have a look at another character. Alright, here's Abby. She is English. She's from a posh family. in Surrey, which is a nice part of southwest of London. And because she's English, she has what's quite common, you quite commonly see here in Britain, and it's often an Irish kind of influence, is dark hair and blue eyes. Okay, normally you traditionally associate dark hair with brown eyes, but I mean, I myself, I actually have this combo, although my hair's mostly grey now because I'm old. But I have blue eyes and dark hair, and I got that from my mum, who's the same. And we're kind of half Irish, so there you go. So that's a very nice natural combo to have. Okay, blue eyes and dark hair, if you want to create that particular look. Okay. I think in North America, I looked into the surveys on this. I think Americans, I think it's about 15% of Americans have this combination too. So it's not uncommon, but it's interesting, and so we could actually try to give Abby some darker eyes, for instance, and just see what happens there, which will be supposedly more traditional. And I guess it still works, but one thing that's kind of like now triggering there is her pale skin. She's got very pale skin, and somehow now this doesn't quite look right because dark eyes and pale skin is unusual. I've seen it, but it looks unusual, and it's quite rare. It's more realistic that you're going to see somebody with pale skin have pale eyes, even if they've got black hair or dark hair. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about fantasy characters. Okay, we've been talking quite a lot about realism, and I am obsessive about realism. But one of the great things about 3D art is that you're not bounded by the physical world in the respect of you can do fantasy characters. Okay, now here is Ren. She is a tiefling wizard from the Dungeons and Dragons universe, and she's actually a character I play sometimes. I'm such a nerd, I know, I tick all the boxes, but what the hell, you know, nerds cool these days, isn't it? Right, so she's got the horns. She's got the red skin, which tieflings have. Tieflings, if you don't know Dungeons and Dragons, tieflings are where the humans and demons came together, and they create this kind of mix of she's half demon and half human, or half devil and half human. But they can be of good alignment, so they're not evil necessarily. So let's have a closer look at Ren. Very good. Okay, and let's have a not quite. I know actually we'll leave her at that because she's looking a little bit surprised there. Okay, right. So what's going on with her eyes? Okay, because this is really about eyes, isn't it? So one thing you'll notice straight away is that she's got super big irises, and that was a deliberate effect I created because she's a fantasy character, so we can do that. Okay, if I gave her normal size irises, it wouldn't look quite. I don't think it would look as interesting. Okay, second point to note is she's got human-like eyes in the sense that she's got white sclera and dark irises. Okay, now one could do something more interesting perhaps here. If you wanted to create a more devilish look, if we go into surfaces, select her. So we go into surfaces with her selected, and we go down to sclera, and we can change the base color on that to, I don't know, something like dark red or something. I think you have to do a multiple number of ones here, so transparency as well. All right, yeah. So that's quite disturbing. Ouch. Yeah, no, that's too. Let's just tone that down on the. So what we'd probably then have to do is go to irises and darken those as well, because now the irises aren't really dark enough. So we just add to the base color of the iris. Just put some more grey on that. Yeah. So, or maybe I don't know, just clear that. Just to clear the. Right. Yeah. So it'd be an interesting look. And then you could, if you wanted to go even further on this, you could maybe have the eyes glowing. And the way you can do glowing eyes is, well, you could actually do an iris glow. But let's just go with a pupils glow. Okay, so we see, we don't want that one. Don't have the diffuse overlay, and we'll clear that. So we've got white there. But let's say we wanted to, I don't know, make it red. And then we can add a light by doing the emissive. Where's the emissive? Emission color. So we go to emission color. Anything other than black there's no light. But if we actually turn that white, now that's a light source. Okay. So we can set that luminance to something that usually has to be really high on these for some reason for emissives, but let's say we did 1.5 million. So and add 3 zeros to that. There you go. And if we turn off the key light and the fill light, okay. So yeah, just change that emission color to say red. Yeah, now she's looking really quite demonic, isn't she? So you can have lots of fun with this, because this is now that her eyes are now a light source. Although the only thing is that it tends to bleach out, so they kind of go to white. So if we wanted to do an emission color, what we could maybe do there is, did I already do that? On the base, let's just try to get everything red on the pupils. Don't think there's no glossy layered weight. Yeah, so you can see that light color now is fully red. Well, I think it was actually slightly better if it was a little bit desaturated. Yeah. On that key light there. Maybe just tone that down a little bit. Yeah, so you could create really quite an interesting effect there. The eyes have it, don't they? You don't want to mess with her. She's probably going to cast fireball on you or something. All right, so that was just a kind of brief interlude there on fantasy characters. Let's now go back to the real world and look at a specific character, one final character. And talk about cornea reflectivity. Okay, so here we are with Rebecca. She is in her beach house in Ibiza. She's not from Ibiza, she's from the mainland in Spain, but she's visiting Ibiza with her friends, and well, the friends are at the beach, and she stayed in the beach house. Anyway, the reason why this is very, very slow to render is because I'm using a dome light source here, which is poking in through windows into a house. So I'm going to show you an actual final render of this so we can talk about Rebecca. She is Spanish, and whilst you do get light-eyed Spaniards, most of them have darker eyes, dark brown eyes to go with dark hair. And so this just simply is a simple match to describe a more of a Mediterranean look that you will see, and indeed for the rest of the world, whether it's Asia or Africa or Latin America, you're pretty much guaranteed to get that combo of brown eyes and brown hair. Okay, and now obviously if they bleach their hair, then that obviously violates that, but then that's usually going to be fairly obvious because you'll see with their skin color. She's got darker, duskier skin. So it's overall to create that kind of more consistent ethnic look if you want to get that realism factor in there. Okay, so that's all I want to really say about ethnicity and eye colors. Let's talk about the cornea reflectivity. I've taken this particular scene here because when you're using a dome light, okay, and that's I haven't done a lot of details on dome lighting, but that's essentially in comparison to doing spotlights. where you're setting up specific spotlights or point sources of light in your scene. You have an overall dome that surrounds the entire scene, and if you combine that with an actual building, a room or something like that which has windows coming in, you can get some very complex, very interesting looking effects. It does mean that your render times are eye-wateringly long, but sometimes if you want to go for that look, you can do that because it's reflected in the eyes will reflect that complex light being reflected around the room and all sorts of stuff, and it creates a very nice soft looking effect that looks hyper realistic, I think. Now, in order to do that, you need to ensure that the corneas, or the surfaces of the eye, which can include the sclera, and I think it's eye moisture as well, or eye socket, I'm not totally sure. You want to have your you go to the surface and have your reflectivity set high. If you have it too low, or have it lower, you won't get as much reflection. Now in this case, you see her face is in shadow using a rim light. Well, it's not really, it's a dome light, it's not even a rim light, but it's having the effect of a rim light in that it's highlighting, the outline of her here and on her chest and arm. But her face is mostly in shadow, but the eyes are reflecting bright sources of reflected objects in the rest of the room. So here you want to select the cornea and turn up your glossy reflectivity, and I also think on the sclera as well. Let me just double check that. No, that's actually not showing me. Yeah, is it on eye moisture? Yeah, I think so just if you're in doubt, just do eye moisture. I don't really want to mess with it here because it's taken about 5 minutes to even get this preview render to the state that it's in. But what I'll do is I'll put two renders side by side so you can see the difference in having a high reflectivity or a low reflectivity when it comes to the surface of the eye, the glossy surface of the eye. Okay. And you can see how that it will create that very, very nice looking effect that will add that realism there. And if you ever watch any TV or anything like that, and you're a shyster like I am, and you're always looking at lighting and how they're actually doing it instead of just paying attention to the story, I often will see how they'll get that effect on the eye socket to reflect those and to get those reflections coming through, and it looks really quite beautiful. Okay, so that's cornea reflectivity. All right. Let's talk about another subject. All right, so let's return to our very patient and willing star of today's event, which is Kira, and we're going to talk about two last subjects. We're going to cover makeup briefly. I don't want to get into makeup too much because I covered it in detail in this video here, which you can see linked. And there's a whole almost an hour about talking about custom makeup. Kira's got custom makeup here, which I've given her using the techniques that I described. But if you haven't done any custom makeup yet, again, this is covered in my video, my other video. You can select some presets that will come with the character or other characters, but you'll have a hard time getting the exact look that you want unless you're using the custom makeup. Okay, so the beauty of the custom makeup is I'm actually going to just drop the view of the camera a little bit so we can see that a little bit more. So here what I'll do is just close her eyes actually, so we can just look at the eye. We can see immediately she's got some eyeliner on. Okay, and the eyeliner is set, if we go to surfaces and face, so this is all covered in the face. Okay, again, this is a summary, so the full details on this are in the other video, but on the base color of the face, we go to layered image editor, and we've got rouge here. Oh, it's not that. No, actually, no, in this case, she actually has eyeliner that came with the character. So we're using an existing eyeliner, but you can actually add your own eyeliner here, and I explain how to do that. If your character doesn't have eyeliner, how to actually add eyeliner using the layered image editor. But more importantly for this, well, eyeliner is very important, but if you want, but what we're talking about here also is the diffuse overlay. Okay, so I'm going to close her eyes. Okay, so we close her eyes, not completely. Actually, yeah, we weren't closing completely. We do want them to close completely, 100%. Go back to the surfaces. In our diffuse overlay weight, we have the eyeliner, which is a custom bitmap, which you can create using Photoshop or GIMP or whichever is your. So you basically draw that over. It's in the other video. You draw it over the face to set up how you want to do that diffuse overlay, and then you color it in the colors that you want. In this case, we have two different colors. We've got a diffuse overlay color, and we've also got metallic flakes color as well. So we scroll down, so we can see that's giving us the bluish look, that blue shimmer, that aqua shimmer. I could change that, you see, to give it a more of a brown or golden look. Okay, so that's more of a gold, or even possibly even slightly pinkish, I don't know, red. This is the beauty of the custom makeup system. You can just tweak it so easily and so quickly, and have an infinite customization of that. So that's more of a pinkish shimmer, and then we go to the diffuse overlay and make that leave that color as it is, but just increase the weight of it. So we'll say we'll jack it all the way up to 1, so it's much darker. In fact, we'll actually just drop that, make that really dark. So if you want to create almost a gothic look. Okay, and let's open our eyes on that one now. So there you get a very different look. Very different look there now, because it's more of an evening kind of makeup. It's a heavier, darker color. If I tone it down again, it's a lighter. See, it's kind of a lighter look. Or we can actually attempt to go for maybe a bluish aqua color. Just make that darker. That's too bright, and actually it's too light, so we're going to darken that. Yeah, that's more like it. That's more like it. Maybe a bit more pronounced, a bit heavier on the saturation. Yeah. So very, very quick effects that you can get there to really change the mood, and just give it like a super bright cyan kind of highlight there. Yeah. That's in her color palette, by the way. She's an autumn color palette, so that we can use aqua, like a warm blue. And that's covered in my color video, which people have not watched my color video enough, and you should be watching my color video, because it gives you the whole system of how to use the correct colors to do this kind of stuff on your characters. If you haven't watched it, I order you to watch it now after this one, and I will link it at the end. Okay, all right. So that is your eyeshadow and eyeliner covered there in terms of the makeup of the eyes. It's super important that you get good makeup effects with your character's eyes. They're an integral part of the look on your character's eyes. Okay, good. Right, the last subject. We're almost done here. I know this is going to be in a bit of a long video, but the eyes are so important that I think it needed a lot of work to talk about the whole thing. So and I've covered a lot of these subjects in my other videos, but it's an all-in-one, one-stop shop. One thing I've never talked about in any of my other videos is eyebrows and eyelashes. Okay, so let's see what's going on with Kira's eyelashes and eyebrows. Eyelashes usually come with the character. Okay, and we can see here that I haven't even touched these. I don't think I've ever touched them once. They came with Junifer's character, Marcus Gabb's Junifer, that she's based on, and the eyelashes have always been there, and I've never really messed with them. But there is actually some, for instance here, there's a dial that came with them. Okay, I'll just turn off iRay for a minute so you can see this. So that just makes them super big. Or quite small. Now you see what she looks like without them. There's something's wrong. It's like she's an alien, or she's had some surgery or something, right? And just revert them to what they were. That's much more a natural look. Or you can go crazy. and super fluttery eyelashes, which look fake basically. And certainly some girls do that when they want to go out on a night out. They'll get fake eyelashes to put over the top of them to enhance it. It's an interesting aspect of human evolution that somehow eyelashes, bright, pronounced eyelashes, would be seen as a survival trait by men looking at women, for instance. Maybe because they think, well, she's got good genetics because she's got good eyelashes to keep all that dust out of her eyes so she won't get blinded. I don't know, but it's definitely an effect that you get, and nice eyelashes really do enhance the beauty there. So not really much more to say about eyelashes, but if your character hasn't got eyelashes and you need to just graft them on by selecting some other character, and there's usually a button there which will say apply eyelashes in that way. Eyebrows are a bit more involved because they you've got lazy eyebrows which are not actually fiber mesh. Okay, let's just turn off her eyebrows for a minute because she's actually got fiber mesh eyebrows. Okay, but if I turn those off, the base surface of her face doesn't have eyebrows painted on. Okay, and we can see that there, so there's no eyebrows there. Alright, okay, I've gone and loaded in the base Junifer face. Okay, and if we hover over, you can see on the base bitmap that eyebrows have been painted onto the base layer of the face. Okay, so that's a lazy way you can get instant eyebrows. The problem with that is that if you had light, if I move her face, move the angle, if you're doing any kind of close-ups, or if you've got a light that's maybe shining across the face, coming from like a rim light effect, you will not get the hair highlighting realistically. So it's a stopgap, but it's not something that you really want to be doing for the long term. It gets you going out the gate, but if you're going to be serious about this, you don't want to be having eyebrows painted onto faces. So you want to have the eyebrows off, and in certain characters you can actually just have a toggle which will turn them on and off. They provide a script that you'll just toggle the face to either have the eyebrows or not painted on. Okay, so I'm going to undo all that, and you can see the problem already is that if you wanted to change the hair color, you're screwed, because she's got black eyebrows going with red hair. I mean, it's just a joke. Just go home. Right, so let's just undo that nonsense and re-enable the Victoria eyebrows that I gave her. You think, okay, Victoria eyebrows, why did you give her Victoria eyebrows? Because I wanted to give her eyebrows that were different to Joni, to differentiate her from her sister that birthed her, basically, because Junifer was Marcus Gabb's Junifer was the origin of both Kira and Joni. Okay, so Joni, I believe, I think she has Joseph Flynn's eyebrows. So you can just see it's like a Frankenstein between the characters. It's got Frankenstein parts that have been chopped and changed around in different ways. With Victoria's eyebrows, they're a bit thicker, but we'll see that they're actually fiber mesh. They're fiber mesh eyebrows. Okay, so we can see. It's hard to really show unless I was able to just zoom in a little bit here. Now you can see that it's real hair, isn't it? So each one of those hairs is an individual set of polygons, okay, which give you a much more realistic look, and any light that is reflecting or bouncing off them or coming in at a different angle is going to give you and we can see there immediately, you can see how again, I don't want to keep hovering over the image here, but if you look at the eyebrows, you can see that the hairs are highlighted beautifully by the light in a very realistic way, and this required customization to get them that way by having to mess around with the go to the surfaces of the eyebrows. In this case, there's two different colors, and you have to just if you know about hair and how to do hair, you just follow the same rules as hair. Okay, so you have the base color, a translucency, which will give a difference, how the light reflects through the hair, glossy effects, and sometimes even a top coat. But to get that look that I was just showing you, where the light would highlight, it's not that one. It's not that one either. Is it the translucency color? Yeah, it was the translucency color. So it looks actually like, in this case, the glossy doesn't do jack shit, and the top coat doesn't do jack shit in terms of how it looks. So it makes me wonder what on earth, what use they are. Anyway, if you have any idea, say something in the comments. But obviously the base layer, that gives you the one, and the translucency gives the other one. If I'd make that pink, there you go. So you can see how the two different effects occur. Anyway, so that's probably on eyebrows. The eyebrows, say you want to obviously have those consistent with your character's hair color. Although actually, in certain cases, you know, the eyebrows can be darker than the hair, especially if they've been bleaching their hair. A bit of a giveaway, isn't it? Yeah, actually, no. You know what? That glossy color there, it has had a subtle effect, because it's changed it. It makes them look a little bit strange. I just reset that back to a more reddish brown. Yeah, okay, so those look natural again now. Okay, I'm matching her hair. I'm going to say that she's a genuine redhead, because you know what? It's very difficult to bleach eyelashes, bleach eyebrows, and most people wouldn't even try it, because they learned on the first attempt that it looked ridiculous. Anyway, if you want to create that superficial platinum blonde look, you know, you can have your character have dark eyebrows and blonde hair, and that will basically, if you want to tell the viewer, yeah, they've bleached their hair, and that can be a valid effect, you know, if they want to create that punk look. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for this video. I've covered so many different aspects of the eyes: shaping, choosing your eye colors, posing, pointing, the colors of the irises, the colors of the sclera, the cornea reflectivity, makeup, and your accessories, such as your lashes and the brows. All these come together to create those beautiful effects that determine how your character is going to basically be manifested in the scene, with the mood and the emotion of the characters, and so forth. Great. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a like, and if you haven't already subscribed, then what the hell are you doing? Get that subscribe button mashed and help me get to 1,000 subs so I can turn off these stupid ads. Good. If you want to learn more about my art, then follow me on Generation 3DX on DeviantArt, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Bye bye.